I just want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone here. I think it's going to be a really, really exciting session today, so I'm very excited to hear all about it. Today we have Ian McSpadden, who's going to be our host, our MC for the day. So I will hand it over to him to get things started off. Go ahead, Ian.
As a member of the SMPTE Board of Editors, I get to immerse myself into many of these papers before they even hit the journal. I hope today that you find that these in-person report outs are even more engaging and take advantage of asking questions of the presenters at the end of each session. The first session up is from page 66, the ITUR Study Group 6 report. The International Telecommunications Union is the specialized agency of the United Nations for Information and Communication Technologies. Today's presenters will be Yukihiro Nishida from ITR Study Group 6, along with Amir Nafez, Paul Gardner, and Andy Quested. Mr. Nishida, you may begin.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Yukihiro Nishida, Chair of ITR Study Group 6, and I work for NHK, a Japanese public service media broadcaster. The International Telecommunication Union is the United Nations specialized agency for information and communication technologies. The ITUR deals with radio communications, and Study Group 6 is responsible for the international standardization of the broadcasting service, covering program production, international exchange, quality assessment, and delivery to the general public. This includes spectrum management for the protection of the broadcast service. To achieve its goals, work is carried out in 3 working parties, 6A, 6B, and 6C, and 1 task group, 6-1. Each is responsible for different technology areas in the broadcasting chain. Working Party 6's remit is terrestrial broadcasting delivery for sound, television, and multimedia, and is led by Mr. Amir Nafez. Part of the role is to protect broadcasting service from interference. To achieve this, 6A manages recommendations and reports that provide technical basis for frequency sharing between broadcasting and other services. Recently, 6A added 5G broadcast systems into recommendation and reports and developed a recommendation that describes methods for introducing new DTTV systems and applications. Other recent activities include updating our recommendation and reports on electronic news gathering and on reduction of environmental impacts of terrestrial broadcasting systems. The Task Group 6-1 was established to work on a specific agenda item of World Radio Communication Conference 2023, or WRC 23. The task group reviewed the spectrum use and spectrum needs of existing services within the UHF band in Region 1, and conducted sharing and compatibility studies between broadcasting and other services. The task group completed a draft text that described the result of the studies and the possible regulatory actions. Working by 6B, the remit covers the areas that bridge program production and emission, including interfaces, file formats, metadata, source coding, multiplexing, transport, multimedia, and interactivity. 6B is led by Mr. Paul Gardner, who also co-chairs one of the SMPTE Technology Committees. Recently, 6B developed a new recommendation on high-level system architecture for immersive video to be shown on various types of display devices. This consists of video object, scene descriptions, a renderer, and a player. Another new recommendation is on using componentized content for the exchange of multiple versions of non-live television programs efficiently and flexibly. It references SMPTE's IMF with examples of production workflows. A revised report on broadcasting of multimedia and data application for mobile reception by handheld receivers as information on a 5G broadcast system and ATSC 3.0. Another revised report provides an updated guide to using the audio definition model metadata. Working Party 6's unique remit is the presentation or baseband layer for sound and television broadcasting, including program production, international exchange of content, media accessibility, and quality of service. Led by Mr. Andy Quested, who co-chairs the ITU Intersector Group dealing with accessibility and leads the EBU QC Group. He is also a SMPTE Fellow. And one of the major topics is the continuous development of high dynamic range television and guidance for program makers on its use. And recent activities include the exploration of advanced immersive sensory media systems and the use of artificial intelligence in production, which have been reflected in device reports. The work on energy-aware broadcasting has led to a new ITR opinion, giving advice on how and when carbon offsetting is acceptable as part of a company's sustainability strategy planning. The work of the future broadcasting is to develop a roadmap for the introduction of a new broadcasting system, technology, and application, and also to create a vision which explores the future user experience, future of media production, and future of broadcasting delivery. The aim is to encourage new questions, recommendation reports to create a fully accessible quality of experience for all media consumption and encourage sustainable media production, exchange, and distribution workflows. And this concludes my presentation, and thank you for your attention, and we are ready to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nishida. Do we have any questions from the panel? Madeline Noland.
First of all, thank you very much to SMPTE for the progress report. I read it with interest, and in particular, the ITUR report. I was reading in the printed SMPTE progress report that there is some study work going on for a broadcast core network, which is taking place in the ITUR.
Oh,
and
right.
I was wondering if I could learn a little bit more about that. As people may be aware, ATSC is also working on a similar project and looking forward to working together perhaps on common goals. Thank you. Okay, well, yes, of course, the ITUR is, we are contribution led, and we have received contribution from an academic source, providing the first stages in a report on various aspects of IP distribution, trying to fill in some missing gaps, perhaps, in the overall infrastructure. So please have a look at that current working document, and if other groups would like to contribute, and it's not down to one source, we welcome contributions, from any source. So I think this is an early stage of a report. It's only simply there to provide information, and more information would be appreciated. Thank you very much. We'll definitely be participating. Great, thank you.
Okay, ITR group, we have a question from the audience. Is sustainability, environmental impact limited to carbon, or are you considering other impacts such as radiation, OTA transmission?
Yeah, Andy, could you answer this question?
Yeah, no problem with that. At the moment, the work is going on in 6C, so it's around production. So it's looking at all areas of production, but there's nothing. I believe our plan is to move it out into both 6B and into 6A areas, so to cover the entire end-to-end broadcast chain. Our concentration at the moment is probably on the heaviest use case, if you like, is making programs and getting the ethos right for content creation. But I would see over the next year that this spreading through Paul into EMEA, and so we get a sort of much better overview from end to end. Working Party 6A has already got a document which includes environmental impact of some transmission areas. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I'm sure Mr. Nishida will be able to tell, has the number. He always does have those numbers. But I'm also quite happy to take any more questions on that offline. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much, ITUR Study Group 6. Great presentation. Next up, we're going to have a presentation from page 72 of the journal. This is an update from the 5G Media Action Group on 5G media being a key element in the production and distribution of multimedia content worldwide. This will be presented by Jordi Jimenez, the head of technology at 5G Media Action Group. Mr. Jimenez, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thank you very much, Ian. Actually, well, thank you to SMPTE for allowing us to be here and for accepting our article for the report. I would briefly go into some of the progress done by 5G MAC last year. So basically, we are a cross-industry association reaching the media and the ICT industries. We are working on the fields of content production, services and applications, and content distribution as well. And our role is basically to ensure that the internet and 5G-based access, so global access technologies, can handle the different global technologies and APIs available in all these different organizations that you see on the screen, right? So in the end, our work is on the internet and 5G access as the way to reach the user, and then the services that go on top coming from the domains of production and distribution. In that sense, our work items at the moment around these two aspects are brought by our members. We are a member-driven organization, and we have two work items dealing with content production over 5G in the case of non-public networks, and also identifying different features available in the standards that may benefit 5G production and contribution deployments. And we have a series of work items as well in the domain of content distributions, which go from 5G terrestrial broadcast, for instance, up to delivery on mobile networks, which is the case for linear and on-demand, streaming, multicast in mobile networks, also analysis on audio-video codecs and protocols supported by the systems. And more recently, as well, an emergency alert system that is being, not developed because it's not new. It's basically the 3GPP alert system that is today available in any phone to be also made compatible with 5G broadcast. So these are our work items. As I said, in terms of media production, the work during the last year has been on identifying the different architectures and features in the 5G system that can support three scenarios, basically: news gathering, live audiovisual production with fixed nomadic networks, and also more ad hoc, for instance, music stages or music festivals, right, where you can go and build your scenario and put your connectivity there. In terms of the work, we have identified potential solutions or features in the 5G space that can be applied to these scenarios, and that goes from aggregating bandwidth in a more efficient way, onboarding devices that perhaps even do not have a screen, right, or are not smartphones, are just cameras, microphones that need to be onboarded on these networks. More efficient video encoding with network-aware encoding, for instance, reduction of latencies when it comes to contribution, avoiding, for instance, cellular bonding, and going to more advanced and more intelligent ways of aggregating traffic and ensuring reliability, and so on. Just to give an example, a report will be published soon in our website. We have also been working on standards. So actually there's contribution from members to the 3GPP study on audiovisual production over 5G non-public networks, and 5G MAC will take the role of following up on the recommendation guidelines and actually studying some of the details that I'll speak in just a few moments. We're also dealing with ecosystem and regulatory aspects. So one thing that comes when regarding the 5G rollout of non-public networks is about frequency bands suitable for media production scenarios in the 5G space. Which ones are particularly useful for deploying, for instance, non-public networks, and also identifying spectrum access frameworks that are suitable, right? So, for instance, we are not talking here about long-term licenses, but perhaps about temporary and ad hoc access to spectrum. We need to analyze, how these spectrum access frameworks matches with the available frequency bands for 5G private use. More recently, 5G MAC has accepted a new work item that will be looking at all these aspects, onboarding in non-public networks and time-sensitive communications for time synchronization from the network, enhancements on uplink streaming, low latency applications, edge computing, and so on. In the domain of content distribution, our focus is now on the delivery of content over 5G systems. The initial focus is basically on third-party service provision over 5G media streaming, so basically streaming and OTT, and also on 5G broadcast, multicast, and hybrid broadcast broadband, when you can play basically around the integration of broadcast under unicast-based apps, for instance, dynamic provisioning of services according to demand, service continuity, regional content insertion, and others. For this, we have contributed to the standards in ETSC around 5G broadcast and also to 3GPP. There are currently contributions on 5G media streaming to fix a few details based on implementation, because we are also developing and implementing code. We set up last year a quite successful open community of developers who are developing already some of our demos where we can show how 5G is applicable in this case for media distribution. And for this year, for 2020, for the next year, for 2023, we are expanding the tools to support different other technologies and features in the 5G ecosystem, basically on media streaming, dynamic quality of service policies, introduction of multicast, edge, and so on. So different things that come, different technologies that come available in the 3GPP standards. Actually, the target is to deal with video on demand, personalized live radio, both on mobile networks, 5G broadcast on demand with media streaming, targeted advertising, for instance, and premium content insertion, and the delivery of DVPI over 5G media streaming and 5G broadcast, among others. So that's me, and we have, I'm happy to take questions now, or if not, in our website, we have more information. Thank you.
There was a lot of excellent information, came by very quick. So the slides will be available as well as the links on the page if you need some more information. And of course, make sure to take a look at page 72 on the most recent SMPTE journal. Next up, we will have a presentation from page 82. And this is the European Broadcast Union 2022 update, with a focus on producing the products and distribution between their members. Mr. Michael Nugent, EBU Technical Committee Chair, will do the presentation. Mr. Nugent.
Hello from Geneva. I'm currently at the EBU headquarters for the Horizons. This is a new event on distribution, media product, and platform technology. And I will be giving you an overview. Let me see if there we go. An overview of the work that is carried out by the Technical Committee and the strategic programs of the EBU. Now, during the EBU Technical Assembly in June, a new Technical Committee was elected, and there was an update on the work plan. The number of strategic programs that we have remained unchanged. However, scope, objectives, and deliverables were updated with new activities, and they all include projects and studies in the areas of, as you can see, production technologies, cloud-based architectures, distribution networks, online platforms, and spectrum. Now, this is a list of the project groups under each strategic program. Work continues in all of these areas, but I will outline some of the newest additions of the revised work plan. The Digital Media Production Strategic Program has planned deliverables on the audio group, on immersive and interactive sound, radio production, and loudness. Now, there was a very successful workshop organized recently to explore personalized sound production and distribution workflows. The video group has also recently performed a week-long workshop in SWR that gave valuable advice, and it generated a technical report on producing in high dynamic range. The work on data includes activities and deliverables related to data, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. The work on accessibility addresses the challenges of subtitling and audio description. And recently, the data team oversaw the delivery of a metadata exchange platform that was hosted in the cloud for the archives of the Western Balkan public service media. This was an EU-funded project. On sustainability matters, many of our members now have a sustainable or a net zero strategy, and they need to measure their carbon footprint. So to be truly accountable, they should include not only their operations, but the operations of the suppliers. So a recommendation was produced on sustainability requirements for the procurement of cloud services, as the adoption of cloud services by EBU members is growing at enormous rates. Also, as waste is a part of our carbon emissions, a green production report was produced, which can serve as a waste guide for broadcasters, promotes, of course, the waste prevention practices. On production workflows, there are new transversal task forces. When I say transversal, I mean across all the strategic programs. They are in place working on the newsroom of the future, investigating the use of LED technology for visual production, and the use of game engine technologies for CG animations, which manage to blend the physical and the virtual worlds real time. Additionally, there are new topics are being addressed and by this strategic program, such as the metaverse, Web 3.0, extended reality, and NFTs. Continue on the media infrastructure and cybersecurity strategic program. Among other work, there's been transversal work carried out on media cybersecurity and Gaia-X, which is a project that is funded by Europe to create a federated and secure data infrastructure, in which the EBU leads the media vertical. Additionally, a strategic report on cloud media production has been generated. This has been generated by the hybrid and cloud-based. This is a community of practice. This is a group that I will elaborate in my next slides and falls under this strategic program. Now, on distribution, the Mobile Technology and Standards Group has recently produced a revised technical report on trials and tests trial tests and projects on 4G and 5G broadcasts by European public service broadcasters. And they describe initiatives regarding the use of this technology for broadcasting. Whilst the Broadband Distribution Architectures Group has published a paper on content delivery network architectures, it provides an insight on CDN approaches that EBU members have employed. They are also working on a paper on optical fiber rollout across Europe, which is very interesting as well. Platforms, of course, the platform strategic program looks at the new emerging platforms, such as the connected cars. The Spectrum strategic program promotes, of course, the members' interest in the preparatory work that is done for the WRC 23, especially on the agenda item for the future of the UHF band. It's also engaged in a transversal study on the program makers and special events to understand and secure spectrum for the future needs for the content production, of course. We also continue our efforts in building innovative products on a pan-European scale, and we also seek opportunities to fund their growth. There are several innovations within the EBU, such as the News Pilot. This is an online news exchange for EBU members. It has automatic transcription, translation, artificial intelligence, and recommendation algorithms. Eurovox, this is a language processing toolkit. Pitch, a suite of recommendation tools, and List. This offers advanced measurements in IP-based live video production facilities. And it helps our members, of course, achieve a competitive edge when building an IP infrastructure. The communities of practice I mentioned earlier, they are designed to facilitate the sharing and learning around specific topics of interest or common operational areas. One is the hybrid and cloud-based production. This is a community that is built to assist members to use who are using the cloud for media production, including for even live programming. Implementing open innovation. This is an innovation-focused program, and it does a lot of theme visits. New Builders is a community on new broadcast facilities, which is built for future. These facilities are built for future workflows and technologies, and this group comprises of members, EBU members, who are in the process of planning and constructing new broadcast and production facilities. And the Metadata Development Network, it brings together experts to discuss the latest research, trends, and developments in metadata. This has been a quick overview of the current work carried out, and I will be very happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nugent. That was terrific.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yes. Next up will be from page 111 on the SMPTE Journal. It's an update on JPEG standards and standards in development. Mr. Siegfried Fossel from Fraunhofer, JPEG Liaison Officer to SMPTE and a SMPTE Fellow, will do the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone to my presentation. I give you a short overview of the activities in JPEG. First of all, I give you an overview of the project we have in JPEG. In principle, we have, of course, standard-wise the image coding group of projects. So you all know JPEG, which is very known from the 90s, but we also had JPEG LS, JPEG 2000, and JPEG XR as a legacy codecs. And the lower row, you see the newer codecs, which we either refactored from JPEG or did completely new as new coding projects for specific use cases. We have the JPEG XS for video over IP and high quality video transmission. We have the JPEG XL codec as a new general codec for higher performance and quality. We have the JPEG Plano activity, which is more related to new immersive 3D modalities. And we have the JPEG AI, which tries to use machine learning activities for better compression. That's the coding family, but we have not only the coding projects, we have also, of course, system projects. So to have an ecosystem related to JPEG files and JPEG codecs, so mainly to add file formats, to add search tools, to add specific features, which are not only codec relevant, but also add new activities and new features. And the next one is the quality evaluation. Of course, if you develop new codecs, you need also some quality evaluation. So we work also on this activity. And the newest type of projects are so-called exploration projects. And I will go to the exploration projects a little bit more in the next slide. The main goal in the exploration is, of course, to have a first step to a standard project. That means based on industry requests, we want to investigate where are the need of the next standards, what is a specific area which is of interest for the industry. And in the moment, we have three actual explorations. One is JPEG fake media. So you all know from deep fakes and deep animation that you cannot be sure if an image is natural or if it's artificial created. So here we add secure and reliable annotation to the images and make sure that media modifications can be detected. The next exploration is non-fungible tokens. So that means we want to certify the authenticity and the ownership of digital images. And the third one, which is very interesting, is how can we store images in DNA? Because DNA is known as a high density medium for storing images. Of course, it's a complete different way to store images, and we investigate this as well. The typical outcome of this is, of course, we have workshops and also the proceedings of all of these workshops are on the JPEG website, and we create use case and requirements documents. And if this is relevant and the evidence is shown for the project, then a new work item will be started. I want to highlight also two other projects. One is the JPEG Plano project, because I think this is important for the future. We will see in the future more and more 3D and immersive modalities of an image. And that's the reason why we started the JPEG Plano project, which on the left-hand side, of course, consists of some specific typical parts of a image codec project, like a framework, the conformance testing, and the reference software. But on the right-hand side, you see different modalities of an image. So we started with the light field coding, and we already published the first standard for the part 2. And we continue now with coding of holograms, as well as coding of point clouds. And all of this, of course, in a joint framework, because we believe that at some point, maybe one modality can be transformed to another modality. And that's the reason why we packed this into one framework. The next new project is JPEG AI, so which is a new approach to investigate how machine learning can be used to better compress images. And here we not only look to the standard way that we have encoding and decoding and human observer have a look to the images at the end. Here we have 3 different outputs. One is, of course, the visualization for a human observer, but we also want to investigate how machine learning compression can be used for processed images to improve the quality or make other image features available in the process. And the other one is that we want to use the compression also for computer vision tasks, which is completely different, of course, than looking to an image from a human being. That's the JPEG AI, and here I show you a little bit the results. I will not go to the details. You can, of course, look to the JPEG website to have more details. More important here is that we have HEVC and JPEG 2000 as anchors, and we asked for proposals to see if machine learning compression can have better results at the end. And in our first call for evidence, we saw that there are opportunities to get better results, and that's the reason why we started with this new work item. What is upcoming now? So the next year we will start in January, of course, with JPEG AI working draft. So we had made a call for proposals and evaluated the proposals, and we try now to bring this into a first working draft for the standard. For JPEG XS, we work on a CD for the 3rd edition. Here we add tools for screen content coding. For JPEG XL, we also work on a CD for the 2nd edition to clean up the existing standard. For JPEG systems, we create a technical report to ensure backward and forward compatibility with our standards. And of course, then we have the new exploration projects like JPEG Fake Media. We already started with a new work item and will create a first working draft. For JPEG DNA, we make a call for proposals and then we will evaluate it. And for Plano holography and for Plano learning-based point cloud coding, of course, we are in the standard way of producing the international standard. And that's it from my side. You can have more infos, of course, in the SMPTE Motion Imaging Journal, but also on the JPEG website when you want to have a closer look to specific projects. Thank you for your invitation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
That was a terrific deep dive and update. I really appreciate that. I do have one question on my end, especially for the fake media analysis. Is that something that will be implemented in all content created moving forward, or is that something that can be used as well as existing content that's publicly available?
In principle, both. So we try, that's the reason why I said we also make this technical report on compatibility. Of course, we want also to add new features to existing standards and let's say to add additional markers to ensure the authenticity of images also in the old JPEG legacy standards is a goal of this task.
Okay. No, an enviable task ahead of you there.
Okay.
Appreciate your time, Mr. Fossel. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Next up, we're going to go to page 105 of the journal, which is Digital Video Broadcasting's update on their suite of specifications. The update will be on DVB's work in native IP, video coding, and new endeavors. This will be presented by Emily Dubbs, Head of Technology, DVB. Ms. Dubbs.
Hi, Ian. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for attending, and thanks for this opportunity to give a short update on our work. So I will try to summarize that report with the aid of a few slides. So I thought that as an introduction, it was good to remind that, so of course, our solution has evolved. They are still addressing the diverse market needs of the many territories for which we always have provided, those scalable solutions that can be either used at the wall or in a standalone way. But while doing so, we still follow an overarching objective that remains to allow the industry to first adapt to future market challenges. And we all have in mind, of course, those migrations to IP and the resulting fragmentations, of course, in terms of encoding, packaging formats, but also the fragmentation due to the many different operating systems on the receiver side. Well, I think there's fragmentation at all levels. So this is one objective, to help the industry adapt to those challenges. But also, as always, challenges are coming with some opportunities. So DVB's goal is also to help that industry to capitalize on those new opportunities that are brought thanks to those new technologies. And we have in mind, for instance, personalization that includes targeted advertising. It can be for broadcasters, for instance, to gain some prominence on the connected devices and so on. So these are our objectives that remain same. And in this new world where broadcast is no longer dominant, we think that there's a greater need than ever for those open standards because they can help to address that fragmentation that is very negatively impacting on user experiences. And this is where DVB can make a difference through our role in unifying the delivery of media across all networks and devices. So how are we doing that? So actually, our new IPS Soundtrack Ecosystem builds on two main blocks, I would say. First one is native IP that enables media streaming over broadcast networks. So it's in this way bridging the two worlds on the transport side. So native IP is designed to send actually OTT formats, but through broadcast bearers. So the idea is to take advantage of the large scale, the large footprint capacity of satellite, for instance, but also terrestrial, and use that to deliver content to IP devices. So that's on one hand, so native IP, and I'll come back on that in a moment. And the second essential piece is DVPI that you may have heard about. This is a network agnostic service layer, so that allows to retrieve services from any network. So in this way, it allows some additional offers, so enhanced offers and experiences to be harmonized across the devices, but also to be unified on the user side. So that's another way for us to unify this media delivery landscape. So on one hand, we have native IP that bridges the two worlds on the transport side, and DVPI that achieves a similar goal, but on the end user side to make all this seamless from the end user perspective. So we believe that those broadband technologies, once combined with the power of broadcast, they can offer that ideal media delivery paradigm. So that's our overall objective. So I now give a short update on DVPI. So this is yes, a common service layer for any type of network. Actually, it can be so DVPI help to retrieve services coming from either broadband networks such as DVB- or even 5G technology. So we have a common work currently with 5G MAG to do that. Service can come from broadcast, of course, and from this new network, I mean, the new solution, sorry, native IP. And thanks to that, you can enable smooth IP migrations because you won't have to care about whether services are coming from IP or broadcast. So that's one of the goals, actually, is to help the industry tackle those migrations. And in this way, also, you will benefit from the specificities of each network. And this is exactly what the industry needs. So in this new hybrid world, we need to be able to take the advantages of any type of network. So about the timeline, so DVPI was published nearly 2 years ago, and now we have published an update, which is so a 4th revision of the Blue Book, revision 4. This includes 2 new features. One is the generation of service list on the server side, according to some indications given from the receivers. And another one is the ability for a SAI plus CAM, so conditional access module, to discover and then provide the service lists. So this is a very new update from this September. And we are now working on the next update that will add the signaling of the availability of HbbTV applications that provide accessibility features. And in addition, we'll have, so a bit later in the year, the modifications that are necessary to implement those commercial requirements I was talking about for the use of DVPI as a service layer on top of 5G. So this is in the pipeline regarding DVPI. So DVPI is also an umbrella for other modifications. So for instance, DVB-, which is the main delivery mechanism. So we have some updates here, but I won't go into the details of that. I will instead give a short update on the situation on the market. So currently, there are some implementations that are taking shape. In Italy, for instance, one of the main ones in Europe, so Mediaset is so having a proof of concept that will soon enter a commercial phase. They have been demonstrating so the unified user interface, so with services coming from both IP and terrestrial networks. They have been demonstrating some seamless switch between the instances of a service coming from IP and the ones coming from terrestrial, and some time alignment, of course, between the services. They have been demonstrating also the ability to have DRM, so in some of the services, thanks to an HbbTV application for the access rights and so on. Many manufacturers are involved in this, and on the receiver side, it's worth mentioning, for instance, DP Vision, Vestel, and LG. The network CDN is provided by Mainstreaming. There's a central service list registry also named the CSR, provided by Kinton. So it's a very complete end-to-end proof of concept. And similarly, there is a German proof of concept also, which was started by RD, RBB, and ZDF. So they were not only public broadcasters, but also a group of private ones, by the way, and RTL. So they were showing many also use cases from HbbTV to regionalization and the use of HbbTV apps for DRM. So yes, 19 different partners to show similar use cases. It was kind of great success. I demonstrated at IBC also. And what is very interesting is that those implementations give us feedback on potential gaps, but also potential guidelines, the things they have found useful. So they are all sharing their experience and ideas on the new DVPI forum, which has been launched a few weeks ago. So you can see the news on the DVB website if you're interested in stepping in. So it's based on a Discord server, and this is a place where you can ask questions about DVBI, where you can drop ideas or share some concerns or challenges. And on native IP now, so I'll give you now an update. So native IP is the delivery via broadcast means of content which is normally tailored for IP networks, so OTT using OTT packaging formats. So this solution has been published so this year in February, together with other specifications that needed to be updated, such as DVB-SI, GAC, S2X, and T2. So for the moment, these are mainly the business use cases which are driving the market introduction. For instance, access to OTT in hotels or any public venues in the areas where the connectivity is low, for instance. This is one of the use cases which is quite successful. And in addition to enabling new business models, there are many benefits, such as unifying the systems, of course, on the head-end side. So it means that operators won't need anymore to use a platform for broadcast and one for broadband. They will, of course, have one and the same packaging format, and everything will be used to either address broadcast networks or IP networks. So that's a big advantage. And then, of course, many different things like content personalization made easier. For instance, targeted advertising, it's much easier to do it in IP compared to broadcast with transport stream, for instance. It's better for sustainability also because it's uses multicast ABR. So there's not one session per viewer, but one for many. So these are, this update for native IP. It's now under test. I mean, the VNV that you can see here is stands for verification and validation, which means that the groups are implementing everything and creating some open source tools that will be made available for people to ease their own implementations. And there's another features on which they are working, which is to provide a DVBI content guide for the non-connected use cases. So that was DVBI. And lastly, a word on the video codecs. So you know that DVB has been profiling audio and video codecs since the beginning, to provide a layer of interoperability for manufacturers, providers, and so on. And it's especially needed nowadays with the internet jungle, and also to plan the arrival of 4K and 8K services. So we had published some commercial requirements for what we call NGVC, so next generation video codecs, to pave the way for 4K and 8K services. The first phase has identified 3 codecs as candidates, so AV1, AVS3, and VVC. And there's a second ongoing phase, which may result in the addition of LC-EVC in the toolbox, which is not yet confirmed. And on the technical side, we have published an update of the specification to include VVC. And so that was in February. And in July, there's been a further update to include the support of AVS3. And we are still working on AV1, which is progressing a bit slowly because of some challenges faced regarding performance in the context of broadcast use cases. That's ongoing work, I would say. So compared to the report, I've added just a few more recent things, which are some new study missions that have been launched very recently. So there's object-based media, so to carry multiple media elements in DVB systems, mainly focusing on IP delivery. So this is one of them. And the second one is energy-aware service distribution and consumption, which is aiming, of course, to reduce the energy consumed of the existing services, but also optimizing the energy consumption for new services. So if you are interested in any of those topics, please reach out, because they are open to also non-members, because we have now put in place an agreement to do so, to invite some experts. So please reach out, and there are the topics that you can see here, which are also just launched or probably launching very soon. In case you have any interest, please contact me. So this is my last slide. I finish with just an invitation to save the date for our next DVB World, which is on 14th of June next year. You may have heard about the first edition last year. So it is an unconference, which means it's not a conference. It's sessions that will give you the opportunity to get into discussions, to debate with stakeholders from the whole industry. So it's very unusual. Please have a look on the website if you're interested in this experience. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to take questions if we have time.
I actually have a question about the Discord server that you're using. We have a SMPTE student Discord server that we try to engage students with vendors and technologies and the industry in general. Would love to get more information about yours that I could maybe pass on to them.
What kind of information are you looking for?
Is it an open server or does it require an invite?
It requires an invite, but I mean, the invitation is on the website. You can find it easily. You go on the DVB website, on the news where it has been announced, and then you click on that invitation, and then you will go there.
Excellent. I'll share that on our student Discord server, because I'd love to get them more interested in your efforts. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Dubs. Next up, we're going to do a great transition on IP in a progress report on ATSC3. This will be found on page 60 of this most recent SMPTE journal. This report summarizes work currently underway in the Advanced Television Systems Committee relating to technical standards for ATSC3, which is also IP-based, commercially known as Next Gen TV. Ms. Madeline Noland, the ATSC president and SMPTE member, along with Jerry Whitaker, a SMPTE fellow, will do the presentation. Madeline.
Thank you very much for this. I'm going to be filling in for Jerry Whitaker, the SMPTE fellow, who would ordinarily be providing this report. So with apologies, you have the B team today, but I will take you through a few things that ATSC has been up to. And let's go forward. So first, I want to mention that this report is going to be discussing some of the things that are in process with the ATSC. And so it's a little bit of inside baseball. And let's just say for the moment that in the following tables, we don't really know yet what the exact outcome of each of these things will be. Many of you may be familiar with TG3's active groups, active specialist groups. In fact, these have not changed in quite some time, so I won't dwell on this slide knowing that time is short. But we do have some new things going on in the ad hoc groups. In particular, we have a newly formed TG3-12, which is an ad hoc group on portrait mode and multiple video. Portrait mode is quite an interesting topic, and a lot of use cases have come up. One being if you were to deliver video to a cell phone and you wanted to use the cell phone in portrait mode. Another is if you're using picture-in-picture, for example, perhaps for closed sign language or other types of use cases where the picture-in-picture would be in portrait mode. So that has just begun, and we're pleased that Adam Goldberg from Sony Electronics is chairing that new work. The ATSC 3.0 standards, I don't think that it's necessary to go through all of this. There's amendments and core addendums and revisions and new things coming along, and the things that are in blue are things that are relatively recent, but all of this is available on the ATSC website. I would also encourage those who are interested in updates to subscribe to the ATSC monthly newsletter, which includes a monthly column which tells you what happened last month with respect to any updates to the standards. So if you're an implementer and you just want to get that quick download, I would definitely encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter. It's the best way to keep up to date without having to keep checking back on the website. One of the interesting things on this slide is the ATSC 3.0 interactive content piece, where we say CS, that means it's a candidate standard. And what we find with the interactive system is that it changes kind of at the speed of the internet. And so every year there are new APIs and new systems being brought in. And we're also keeping pace with the CTA Wave 5000 standard, which also changes on an annual basis. So what this group does is they publish a version of work in progress called a candidate standard. It's available publicly on the ATSC website. So anybody who wants to take the new ideas for a test drive are welcome to do so, and we encourage them to do so. One other thing of note on this previous slide is this last one on the line, A53. You'll notice that document number doesn't look like the others. And that's because it's the first time we've touched an ATSC 1.0 document in quite a long time. The reason we're opening up ATSC 1.0 is because there's a deep interest within the United States to minimize the amount of bandwidth that ATSC 1.0 is taking during the transition to ATSC 3.0. And the changes that are happening in A53 are designed to allow ATSC 1.0 subchannels, not the main channel, ATSC 1.0 subchannels to move to AVC video codec. Yes, ATSC 1.0 is still on MPEG 2. By regulation, the United States broadcasters cannot change their main channel off of MPEG 2, but they can change their subchannels. And that was what A53 is about. So that's an important one also in candidate standard so that people can take that for a test drive and see how it's working in the marketplace. My understanding is they're already doing it in the marketplace, so hopefully everything is working okay. There are some recommended practices. These have not changed since the last time we spoke. And we have some projects underway. Again, many of these projects are amendments and revisions of existing standards as the ATSC 3.0 system gets rolled out. As Emily mentioned about DVBI, you do get feedback from the field, which is excellent. And we go into the standards and we clarify and update and add different pieces as needed. There is A300, which gets a yearly update. This is the ring to roll all rings, so to speak. It normatively references all the other standards in the suite, and it gets an update every year as different standards within the suite of standard change over the course of a given calendar year. There are a couple of things in here that are worth pointing out. One is the CMAP signaling. That's been an ongoing project for some time. Some of it was waiting for -IF, and now we're waiting for bandwidth from our members to finish up that work. But we're excited to be starting to include CMAP into the signaling system, as well as for audio, video, and captions. A couple other things that might be of interest to people would be the service signaling for hybrid delivered content. That's also a new one that we're excited about. And there are many others going on in the works that are happening with ATSC. And the list goes on. We're busy, and the list goes on. One of the things that I'd like to spotlight is the work on Core Broadcast Network, Broadcast Core Network, which I was talking about with the folks from the ITUR group. There is a specialist group in ATSC, which is focused on developing a core network for broadcast, co-led by Hewlett-Packard and Coherent Logics. And the idea is to define a core network that could work as a standalone network for just broadcast only, i.e. downlink, and could also interface with a unicast core network, such as that for 5G. And the idea is to create a nationwide wireless data delivery network using high power, high tower broadcast. We have a number of planning teams, PT4 on the future of broadcast ecosystem technologies, and they are actually meeting right now, discussing some of the new things that are being presented that the broadcast industry might want to consider for the future. We have PT5 on automotive applications. There are 2 reports from them available on the website, and PT6 on global recognition of ATSC 3.0, which are helping to coordinate efforts in India, Brazil, Jamaica, Mexico, Canada, as well as the ITU and others. One of the spotlights that I'd like to have for the ITU is this work on the ITU expert group. So we have an ITUR expert group in ATSC, and what they do is they coordinate and bring together the ATSC3 experts so that edits that are submitted into the ITUR documents and process have been fully vetted by the experts of the ATSC 3.0 system. There's lots and lots of work to do, and we need to get our fingers in even more pies. One of the other things I read about in the ITUR progress report in the SMPTE printed document was that there's work going on with HTML5 based television interactive systems. And the ATSC 3.0 A344 system has not yet been submitted for that. So that's on us, and we have a ton of work to do. We also have several implementation teams on emergency messaging, on India, conformance, Brazil, and the tower network. And I just have a couple of minutes left, so I just want to highlight one of these teams. I'd like to spotlight the India implementation team, which has spent a couple of years building a technical demo at Prasar Bharati headquarters in Delhi. And I'm pretty excited about this group. The team was formed to get this done and to prove into Prasar Bharati to their satisfaction that ATSC 3.0 works not only with 6 megahertz bandwidths, but also with 8. We're pretty excited that Prasar Bharati has officially begun work on their own field trial of ATSC 3.0 in Delhi. This is being done by Prasar Bharati and private companies. And so where the implementation team was sort of intended to jumpstart this activity, they are ready to take a step back and let the marketplace take over. So we're very excited about this development and are following it closely. The second thing on the implementation team area is the inter-tower communication network, which allows the broadcasters to use their own RF bandwidth to send the data to the towers. So in other words, sending data from tower to tower using the RF bandwidth belonging to the broadcasters. And this would make it so that you wouldn't necessarily need a microwave link or a fiber link from the studio to the transmitter. This could save a lot on OpEx and could potentially be a terrific system for creating a mesh network of towers. This would go kind of hand in hand with the broadcast core network, allowing orchestrated services across a wide area of broadcast towers. A few other technical documents to mention are all available on the website: technology group reports, implementation guides, planning team guides, and of course the standards themselves. There's a little bit about the market rollout. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm basically out of time. Very excited about what's happening in the United States, and Boston is supposed to be coming soon, my home office town. Go Boston. Jamaica is on the air now. And there's a lot of other interest in 3.0, including in Brazil, India, as I mentioned, Canada with the B2C Convergence Lab, and other countries. So here it is for more information to check out what's going on with the deployments, what's up with the standards, to sign up for the newsletter, and consider joining ATSC as a member to help us with the rising tide that we hope is going to rise all boats. And I think I made it.
Excellent. Well done, Madeline. Do we have any questions from the audience or the panel on ATSC3 Next Gen Television? I have a question pop up. It says, what's the latency like when using towers to transmit data in the ITCN project in Hong Kong?
That is a good question, and I will have to take that back to the experts. I am not sure. So if I could get the questioner's contact information, please allow me to take that one offline.
Excellent. We can do that. Okay, Ms. Nolan, that was a terrific presentation. And as a television broadcaster myself, I greatly enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a piece from page 97 on the last journal. It's Greening Our Story, Transforming the CBC Radio Canada into a world-class sustainable public service media company. Responding to national public sentiment on climate issues, the CBC initiated a plan that lightened their carbon footprint. Challenges for a nationwide media enterprise are great. Athena will explain how they engaged with this project. Athena Trustelis is CBC Radio Canada's Senior Advisor on the Environment. Ms. Trustelis.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to share my article. For those of you who are not familiar with CBC Radio Canada, we are Canada's national public broadcaster. Our mandate is to inform, to enlighten and entertain, and we play a central role in strengthening Canadian culture. And we're also Canada's trusted news source. We offer a uniquely Canadian perspective on news, current affairs, and world affairs. We, as you can see from this slide, we have our headquarters in Ottawa with major centers in Toronto and Montreal, but we're based all over the country from coast to coast to coast. And we offer our diverse content in English, French, and 8 Indigenous languages. And just by the graphic itself, you can see just how big our stretch, how big our footprint could potentially be based on the size and the scope of our reach across Canada. And as you can imagine, we've been working on sustainability for quite a long time. It's not something that we started overnight. It's something that's been part of our mandate since 2003. We've been reporting our performance since about 2008, and we have copies of our environmental report on our corporate website. These reports showcase the ongoing work that we've done to cut down waste, decrease consumption, and reduce any of the potential negative impacts on the environment that our work may have. And we've done quite a bit of work that's been done by our employees, for our employees, that's been done for our buildings. For example, our facility in Montreal is a brand new state-of-the-art facility that has implemented sustainability measures right from the construction of the facility. And we've done quite a bit of work on our fleet as well. But that wasn't enough. And so in June of 2021, we launched Greening Our Story. And what our mandate was a 5-year corporate environmental sustainability strategy with the mission of building an environmentally sustainable public service media company that current and future generations could be proud of. Our vision is to embed environmentally sustainable thinking in all we do. And that's really based on the fundamental fact that when we surveyed our employees, over 90% of employees felt that this is a critical functionality that we need to be looking at as part of our future strategy. So what I've got on the screen now are just the targets that we've set as it relates to this particular strategy. And we have the traditional targets that every other organization has: reducing our carbon, looking at our energy and our water consumption, diverting waste from landfill. But what makes us unique is the targets that we've set for our productions. And what we intend on doing is having 100% of our in-house productions using a carbon calculator, and I'll come back to that in just a minute, and 25% of that being Albert certified. We're also targeting our independent productions. So productions that we will serve, that air on our broadcast system, and we want them using our carbon calculator before. And this is something that's never been looked at, never been done. Traditionally, our environmental performance has been focused on our fleet, has been focused on our employees and our facilities. We've never looked at the production level before. So this is what's different this time. In terms of the strategy itself, I just want to give a very quick overview. We've got 4 strategic pillars. The first is focused strictly on the sustainable production piece. The second is the traditional light footprint and looking at how we're going to be reducing our carbon emissions, our energy consumption, and our greenhouse gas emissions as well. We've also got the piece that's focused on our internal processes, from our supply chain management to our employee engagement, and that one's called Scripting a New Path. And then finally, shaping our narrative, which is really all about the transparency and accountability that we want to share as part of the fact that we want to be leaders in this. And we are leaders in this. We are the only organization currently in Canada that is looking at implementing sustainable production at the production level from a broadcaster's perspective. I do want to emphasize and I want to put a little bit of an emphasis on our pillar 1, the producing sustainably pillar, and just give a really excellent example of how these targets have already changed our activities. We are only 1 year, a year and a half now into from the launch of our strategy. But just to put it into context, one of the things that we did was license the use of Albert, a carbon calculator that's managed by BAFTA, to help us identify what our footprint is at the production level. So it is a calculator that is specifically for production purposes, and it was never available in Canada prior to 2021. We were piloting it in 2020, but it launched officially. The international version launched officially in January or February of 2021. And by using the calculator, our intention is to measure our true emissions by production and inspire other productions to look at their behaviors and processes and adopt improved workflows. And so the example I'd like to share reflects that. As everybody knows, the Tokyo 2022 Olympics were held in the summer of 2021, and the Beijing Olympics were in just 6 months following that. And so we took advantage of that unique opportunity, and we purposely designed our Tokyo set so that it would be repurposed and reused in Beijing. And in fact, 75% of that set was reused. We also made arrangements to reduce the costs, the freight-related emissions related to shipping that set from one country to the next. So historically, what would have happened is our set would have gone from Canada to Tokyo, back to Canada to China, back to Canada. and we took out the middleman, if I can put it in that using that terminology, and shipped the set from Canada to Tokyo to Beijing, where it was placed in storage until we were ready to use it. And so by using that carbon calculator, we were able to identify improvements to our workflows from a sustainable perspective. And these are the types of opportunities we're looking to implement as part of this strategy and at the ground level from the way we're producing our material. So where are we now, a year and a half into from the launch of our strategy? We have particular targets that are on track. There are specific things we need to improve. And of course, there are some really critical anticipated challenges. So in terms of what's on track, we are ahead of the curve when it comes to our Albert calculations and the implementation of sustainable production methodology into our workflow. So that is moving ahead very, very positively. We're also doing quite well with our carbon, our energy, and our water emissions, and looking at our procurement processes. So our target was to embed sustainable criteria in the RFP solicitation, but I'll come back to this because there's a really good example I'd like to share about how far we've come in achieving that particular target. Where we can improve is looking at the data analysis related to our greenhouse gas protocol, the scope 3 in particular, with a focus on the procured goods and services piece. For those of you who are familiar with the GHG protocol, it's very much based on an input-output method, and it's based on the total spend, which may not necessarily be reflective of what the emissions are. So we're looking at data analysis and verification of our data with regards to that, and our waste and recycling targets need a vast improvement. Finally, we're anticipating challenges as part of the post-pandemic return to normal. We anticipate that there will be increases in our consumption. We're trying to mitigate that at this level because we do anticipate that at this stage of the game. However, we do recognize that this will be an issue. And we also recognize that by setting the target of electrifying our fleet, the market availability in Canada is challenging. And I'm sure it's the same across the world, the globe. In terms of our highlights, I'm not going to go into this. You'll have a copy of the presentation following this, but these are some of the examples of the different activities that we've achieved as part of the strategy thus far. What I wanted to highlight were just the examples with regards to our procurement processes. We've hired sustainable procurement resources. We've done sampling assessments of our vendors and their commitment to sustainability. And we're looking at embedding sustainable criteria with regards to our RFP process. That is the end of my presentation. I invite you to look at our website for more information about our strategy. And if there are any questions, I'm available to answer those as well.
Athena, great presentation. And I definitely have to say that the session at the SMPTE Technology Summit was very well attended on the interest in sustainability and just the awareness of what media entities can do towards it. It was very enlightening because most folks, you don't think of, okay, what are all the resources that go behind media production? And you guys really laid out a great roadmap for others to follow.
Thank you.
It looks like we have a question from Andy Question.
Hi, and thank you, Ian. You said a little bit of what I wanted to say there too, so thank you for that. But Athena, you might be aware, or my ex-employee, because I'm now left the BBC, now from this year requires all programs, all commission programs to be Albert certificated. What I was going to say to you is this looks like there's a public service move here, so I'd love you to get in touch with Hans Hoffman in his EBU hat, and myself as well, and the ITU and the SMPTE group, so that we can get a coordinated effort going on this, because what I begin to worry about is we might start fracturing different processes, different measurement options. And I think we've got an opportunity here to get some, I hate to say it, some standardization around sustainability. So look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
I would welcome
Slightly more
that.
a request than a question. Thank you.
That would be wonderful. I would welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Andy, we love standards.
I know. That's why, I hate to say it, we need to get involved. We got Barbara over there doing a few bits of standards or trying to get the standards as well. So she's going to be heavily involved in SMPTE if we're not careful.
I'm here, Andy. I'm listening.
Yeah, of course you are, Hans. But we've got a good initiative going in the ABU, the ITU. We've got Barbara doing a lot in the US. We've got SMPTE doing a lot, and I think if we all work together, we can actually get this to be a reasonable set. There's more than the Albert around. There's some good calculators in Germany and in South America as well.
Perhaps there's time for another joint task force, but let's talk offline. Good point.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
Very well put, Andy. Much appreciated. Athena, thank you very much. That was very enlightening. Much appreciated.